Hey everyone, welcome to another edition of Leaders and Learners, where we know that the best leaders are lifetime learners. They spend time doing the research, increasing their knowledge, and helping others do the same. So today, I have someone on that I think is going to be able to help y'all with something that we all have issues with. It's productivity, okay? We read these things, we do all this research about how you do this better, how you do this faster, how are you more efficient with your time when you do A, B, and C. But at the end of the day, bucket responses really don't work because we are all different. We all have different triggers. We all have different energy levels at different times of the day. We are all different. People ask me, how do you get up and work out at 5 a.m. every morning? Because if I don't do it, then I won't get it done. And then I'll just be a mess. And y'all don't want that. So we find time for the things that are important to us. We make the best use of our energies and our, good vibes and our caffeine before it wears off. We do so many different things and have so many different techniques to being as productive as we possibly can. And sometimes you still fail. What is that all about? To help us figure this out, I'm bringing on Miss Nettie Owens. How are you?
Great. It's good to be here.
Absolutely. So let's get this party started. I want you to tell the people a little bit more about you. Where are you from? Where are you at right now? And what's been going on with you?
Sure. So where I'm from, kind of a little bit all over. I started out in Indianapolis when I was little, West Virginia, Maryland, New York, California, and I finally landed for now in Pittsburgh, Pennsylvania, which is where I'm coming from right now. I have kind of moved back and forth through being an employee in a business, having my own business, creating something new, doing a lot of research through the years about what works and what doesn't on that topic of productivity. And that's, I love the theme of leaders always are learners because I love gathering new information, finding things out, exploring ideas.
So tell me, what was all the moving around for? Was it personal? Was it professional? Was it when you were, a kid? Like, how much of this you actually had control over? And why aren't you in California anymore?
I know. Well, that's a great question. I like to visit. I'm so happy visiting and coming home. But yeah, the moving was mostly personal. Some of it was when I was a kid. Some of it was when I was in school. Some of it was as an adult. So just a little here and there. Longest time in Maryland. And, you go to where the opportunities are and know that wherever you land, you're going to be okay. And that's where I am now.
It's funny you say that because my husband and I both, mentor people on how to be more progressive in their life. And sometimes it does require you to move elsewhere where the things that you want to do or the things that you can afford are. But people have such a hard time with that. What do you think that's all about? Is it just fear of change? Or I personally just hate moving. But when it comes to opportunity and the ability to create upward mobility in your life, it's worth that sacrifice, you would think. But there are some people that would rather not be as happy, not be as financially successful, and stay in place. What do you attribute that to?
One of our greatest needs is our need to belong. And so I don't think it really has as much to do with fear of change as it is a sense of having to reestablish your sense of belonging in a new place. And maybe they're not even thinking about that, but they know that where they are, they know the people, they know the routines, and they know their place in that particular place. And I know this is true for me, in these moves. Especially the most recent one, I still feel a really strong attachment to belonging in the town that we were living in for 16 years. And I don't feel a sense of belonging yet here in Pittsburgh. And it takes time to cultivate that, to meet people, to put, find your place in a place. And I think that's probably what motivates people, especially at an unconscious level, of like, will I fit into this new place that I'm moving towards? But the reality is, and this is the coolest part about this, is that if you do move and you take that leap, you'll not only belong in your new place, you'll also belong where you were, and you'll have a greater sense of belonging in the world where you could be comfortable anywhere. But it does take that like, okay, I'm going to have to do something new. And it's hard. It's a hard step to take.
With it being Mental Health Awareness Month, I know that you did some mental health things early in your career.
Mm-hmm.
What does this month mean to you, and how much of that work do you still find yourself doing?
All of it. I don't really feel like I've changed. I just don't talk about it quite as much in my day to day. But when I'm on podcasts like this, I definitely talk about it. So the early work that you're talking about is I hung my shingle out as a professional organizer, working with people who have ADHD, anxiety, depression, OCD, PTSD, traumatic brain injury, other things that affect their ability to create the environment that works best for them. Now working with entrepreneurs, founders, CEOs, it's almost the same work. And there's certainly a lot of mental health issues that come up when you're talking about entrepreneurship and business ownership. It almost just pulls them out, right? Even if you didn't feel like your mental health challenges were challenging, you start a business and you're definitely going to sense those. You're going to feel them, and you're going to have to really seriously confront them. And so for me, I don't necessarily think too much about this as Mental Health Month, because it's just something that I'm working with on a day-to-day basis, both for myself and for the people that I work with. I'm just glad for the greater place to talk about it, that we are talking about these kinds of things with more regularity than we used to.
Let's take that a little deeper. I wrote an article recently about successful women, right, dealing with long-term depression, being highly productive. So you help people become more productive. Do you run into situations where you see that people are doing too much? Like, you're doing too much. Something's not right here.
Yes, actually, one of the first articles that I put out about productivity was called Productive Rest. So most of the people that I'm working with are higher on that spectrum of doing too much. And maybe that's not quite the right way to phrase it. You're always in a decision point of like, what is the next activity that you're going to choose? And I think what is missed a lot of the time is that taking a nap is productive. It can be productive. It can 100% increase your productivity, your mental capability, your well-being. And because as a culture, we don't think of that activity as productive, we relegate it to, unnecessary. Taking time outside of your business is a productive activity. It will absolutely increase your creativity and your connectivity so that you can do better work. But unless we prioritize that as productivity, we won't necessarily do it when we need to.
You said taking a nap. What's the difference between taking a nap and taking a sleep? Because if you are that tired, there's probably a lot going on in your head, right? It's not always your physical doing. People think,
right.
I'm so busy, because they're just, so flustered doing all these physical things. But it's really their mind that is super busy with all this unprocessed information in them. And I have a friend, once you take a nap, it winds up becoming a sleep, because your body's not used to you giving them that permission to take a rest, slow down, pause, time out. How do you control that? I think it's a good idea. I try to sneak them myself, but and some people aren't good at recovering from those. So have you actually, have you talk people through this process? Like, how do you start giving yourself permission to time out, to take that moment that you need to be able to reinvigorate?
Yeah, that's a great question. And you, um, just your phrasing around that, right? Permission to sneak one in as if it's not allowed and shouldn't be happening, right? So part of it is just changing your approach to these kinds of activities. For me, one thing that's helped is I've worked with Victoria Whitfield. You can check her out at victoriawhitfield.com. And she teaches business people to meditate as part of their productivity, as part of their practice for, success in business. And so it's positioned as just another business activity, which I really like that concept. And so it might not be taking a nap, but what are the things that you need to do to feel grounded, to settle your mind, to settle your body when you are feeling those like thoughts of a million things running around in your head? So what I know for sure from just a neurological standpoint is that when we get worn down, we stop thinking from our higher thinking part of our brain. So we stop thinking from our prefrontal cortex, which manages, your decision making, your goal setting, future planning, working memory, which is that holding two concepts in your mind at the same time. So this is a high energy level kind of function in your brain. So when we're tired and worn out, that part of our brain goes offline. And the part of our brain that comes online is that more primal part, which is like, give me food, let's make babies, and, and sleep. Like, it's totally protective. It's just fostering whatever you need for your basic needs, which means you're not going to think, what's the best food for me to eat? You're just going to think, give me food, sleep, escape, whatever it is. And so the more that we can keep ourselves in that higher level of thinking, then the better decisions we make, the more thoughtful we can be. And so we need to think about what's going to reinvigorate that part of our brain. And it could be meditation, nap, taking a shower, going for a walk, exercising, eating fresh fruits and vegetables, getting a drink, talking, making like a really authentic connection with somebody, laughter. All of those things can help just reinvigorate that part of your brain. So now you're working from your best possible self instead of like, let me just survive the next minute, which is what happens when we allow ourselves to become run down. And we don't want to operate from that space. We're not giving our best. And the people that are listening to this, you all know this, like, you are those high achievers that are about to save the world. You cannot be, energizing yourself from your lowest point. You have to be working from your best.
I mean, we say that, right? We say that self-care and take care of yourself and give yourself permission to get what you need. But at the end of the day, we just don't.
Mm-hmm.
Just don't. It's not yet until someone actually has a physical breakdown.
Mm-hmm.
I know people that have literally gone to the hospital because they're just dehydrated and overworked and stressed and having anxiety attacks. So it's almost like you're giving great advice, which is, hey guys, don't wait till you hit the bottom to give yourself the nutrients that you need physically and mentally.
Mm-hmm.
But then they do.
So
is this something that you've actually covered in your book? Because clearly it's not something that people can self-discipline themselves with well. So walk them through this.
Sure. I'll walk all of us through it because it's definitely something that has to be practiced on a day-to-day, moment-to-moment kind of a basis. It's not something that's set and done. And you're absolutely going to have days where you're like, and I totally screwed that up. Like, just, it's real. So for one, just giving yourself some permission to know that you're on a path and sometimes you'll stumble, and that's totally okay. There are chapters in here that we talk about mindset and productivity and energy level. Because it's divided up, I have experts, 48 people that came in that I shared, that we shared a conversation, and they talked to me about, like, what is it that you feel like business owners need to know right now? And that's what came into this book. So productivity and mindset, worksite wellness, as we've talked about, transitions, moving from one activity to the next, energy, health, wealth, intuition, all of these kinds of things we cover in here, little segments for each one. But as far as knowing what to do and doing the thing you're supposed to do, two things come up for me as I hear you ask that question. One, it's a lot easier, and James Clear talks about this in his book, Atomic Habits. It's a lot easier to do what you need to do when you identify as the person who does that, right? So if we see ourselves as the CEO that runs herself ragged in order to get things done, that puts herself last, that's always tired, then we're not going to prioritize taking care of our body as part of that, equation. So we might need to see a new identity. Maybe the identity that we have for ourselves is more like picking out a particular CEO that that does this well and emulating some of their practices. Now, I'm not saying you do exactly what they do, because as we talked, everybody's path is a little bit different. And for me, what that looked like is sitting in a conference, a professional conference, and listening to these wonderful, amazing women talk about how they had grown their company. And I'm sitting there and I'm like, oh my gosh, what I see while you're talking is none of you have young kids, which I had. None of you, you're all significantly older than me. So you're telling me I can't do this until I'm at the time, like 20 to 30 years older than where I am right now. And either you have a partner that's very supportive, or you don't have anybody, it's like, so it was just like a different, it's just like a different group. These people might as well have been aliens. I'm like, there's no way I can do this because I don't see anybody that looks like me. So one is find that identity. And if it takes emulating somebody who you see doing it well, do that. Don't emulate the person who's running themselves ragged in order to achieve their goals. And there are people, just look around, ask questions, talk to folks. What you see at first on social media might not be, what it looks like. It might mean that your identity doesn't do all the things. Like, I had to let go of being involved in my kids' PTA because I can't run a company, raise my kids, and be involved in their PTA. I cannot do that. So I pick the things that are important and meaningful while I still can make sure that my body is taken care of. Because if this is gone, it doesn't matter what my amazing thoughts are, they go with it, right? So
you know what I heard you just say without saying it? Representation matters. And it's so ironic that is the theme of the day these days. Representation matters. So it not only matters for people of color who want to find people of color that look like them, that have succeeded in something great, but women that are professionals, high achievers. It's important for us to also find women that have a lifestyle that looks like ours, that we can look at for representation. It's so ironic. Many times people downplay that representation matters, especially when it's, the men and women thing, black and white. I love that you just put that wrapped it all in a bow. Representation matters on every level. These things are important. Now, with your books, and, ladies and gentlemen, check out her books, and there's 2 of them. So what's the difference between the 2? What's in one that's not in the other? I'm sure you want everybody to get both, but talk them through kind of what your labor of love has produced.
Absolutely. So they are about, I think it's 97 interviews between the 2 of them. And each book just breaks down the interviews into segments and sections. So you can turn to it and say, I'd like to read about leadership. I'd like to read about finance, law, communication. What's a little bit different about each one is these are interviews that were taken in a point in time. So this first book, the point in time was from the very end of April 2020 until the end of August 2020. So there was a lot that was going on. And this book, you're talking about representation. This book has a lot of interviews that were taken from business owners during the George Floyd. It's not it like
kerfluffle.
Yeah, however you want to identify that. So there's a lot of diversity, equity, inclusiveness in this. There's a whole segment in this, and it's really interesting to me to hear the voices and what was expressed as what was important to apply from that to your business. And we took a range of interviews on that. And it's really just, who was answering those questions at the time and what they would recommend. And I think what I gathered is that no matter when you pick this up, you're going to find the answer to the question. So it's not just that this was taken during a pandemic, because that's a lot. This one is lessons learned from interviewing businesses during a pandemic. Obviously that was the theme, but anytime that there's a crisis or you don't know what the next step is, right? That's your pandemic. That's your uncertainty. And so this will be able to give you some answers. The second book just continues those interviews and the questions. And so we have a whole set of other, themes and ideas. What I found in the second set of interviews was really this thread of flourishing in uncertainty. And that's what the second book really covers, that adaptability. What are the key elements that you need to flourish in uncertainty? Well, as I said, uncertainty can be a pandemic, or it can be financial crisis, or it can be when you're moving, which is what we were talking about, just as we started. It could be anything that you're facing that you don't know what the next step is. And so, the answers are here. I would say get both. If you have the ability to do so. They are on every format. So we have the audiobook for volume 1. The audiobook is coming out at the end of the summer for volume 2. But we have paperback and hardback and digital, whatever you want, grab a copy. It's a great book to just pick up every day and say, you know what, let me ponder something today. Maybe I'll ponder mindset. I just flipped to this. And main takeaway, your mindset affects your life and your business, and overcoming mindset blocks is essential to moving forward. And then at the end, it gives you 3 action steps. So recognize what mindset blocks you may have created that are preventing you from being successful. Make sure your subconscious is aligned with your purpose. Address your blocks so that you can move your business forward. So no matter what, you're going to have some nugget that you can apply immediately.
So do you work with individuals, or do you work with companies, or both? Like, how can people tap into your wealth of knowledge?
So I do work with business owners, CEOs, founders, entrepreneurs. And if you have a team, that's great. If you don't have a team, that's fine too. There's sort of a path for either one. The best way to get started is actually just to come and have a chat. And we do that. I run networking groups. You brought up diversity and representation. And that's part of why I run these networking groups, is because we're a different breed, right? Of folks that are willing to go out and foster something new and run an organization, and to be able to talk to other people at this particular level. It's just a wonderful experience, and amazing stuff comes out, collaborations, business, new perspectives. And so, an opportunity here is to come and visit and have a conversation and see where it goes, meet some new folks.
I love that. Let me take you back really quick to the beginning, just for people that are out there and they decide, or not they decide, probably their life is blowing up. And they're like, right. I'm just the queen of procrastination. I am not as productive as I need to be, or I want to be, or I'm always busy, but I ain't getting nothing done.
Yeah, for sure.
At what point do they contact you?
Now I can make it super easy. I put together a short guide that's complimentary for your listeners, How to Succeed in Business, the Proven Path of Business Success for High Achievers. And we talk about the elements that are necessary to be successful on the path that you're on. So that's probably the first step. It's really easy to get access to it. You would actually just take out your phone and text the word freedom, right? Which is what you're looking for in your business. Ultimately, you're looking to make an impact and have the ability to live the life that you desire. And so you text the word freedom to the number 411321, and that will give you this guide.
You said text freedom to
Text freedom
411321.
Mm-hmm.
That's it?
That's it. Super easy. And from there, you'll be able to decide, kind of like pull out, okay, it'll help you sort of assess where you most need to address in order to get out of this, like being on the hamster wheel, right? And not getting forward where you want to go.
I absolutely love that. All of this information will be in the captions.
Mm-hmm.
And I want to make sure that they have the opportunity to do that because it happens sometimes. Are there seasons of procrastination, or do people simply make it a habit? Is it, because sometimes, okay, here we go. I heard someone say this the other day. Well, it was about a month ago. And she said, I've reorganized my life to do most of my work at my highest energy point during the day.
Mm-hmm.
I thought that was excellent.
Yeah.
But that's a daily thing. Mm-hmm. Are there moments when people are suffering seasonally? I mean, if I lived in Seattle, I'd probably be suffering all the time because I heard the weather was terrible, but I digress. But are there things where they have seasons of maybe depression and can you come out of it without getting help? How do you do that?
Ooh, so I'm not a fan of coming out of things without getting help. I actually am a huge fan of leaning into your community of support, whatever that looks like for you. So it could be a professional, it could be a book, it could be a course, it could be a program, like whatever. It could be something that there's no reason to do it without help because there's so much help around you, right? So to answer the first question, absolutely, there are seasons, as there should be. If we look around us in nature, there are seasons, even in California, even in sunny California, rainy season in the winter, and we have a hotter season, more dry in the summer, where you can go like 3 months without seeing a drop of rain or even longer. There's seasons everywhere we look. So when we take that into ourselves, we can say it's normal and natural to have an ebb and flow, both in our day. So as you heard, there's a higher productivity point for you during your day that you want to think about the kind of work that requires that higher level of energy and productivity to do during that time. Like, this is not the time to check your email. This is the time to really dig into things that require your full thought process, your full presence. You want to make sure you're doing those during your higher energy times, and resting during that ebb time when you don't have as much energy. The same is true for our week. The same is true for our month. The same is true for our year. So we're always moving in these cycles of energy creation and then energy replenishment. And I think probably one of the biggest things that you could take away from this whole conversation today is just recognizing that that's true. Just recognizing that there's no world where you're going to be on all the time. And if you hold on to this belief that you need to be on all the time, you will simply suffer, and unnecessarily, because if we tap into that replenishment of energy so that we come back full, we can change the world. We really can. I mean, there's so much potential in each person to do so. But while we hold on to this belief that there's no stopping, there's no rest, there's no example for us anywhere in nature that says that's true.
Just like people whose profession is organizing. So I have friends that are organizers. I'm guessing their worst client is a hoarder. You help people with productivity. What
Mhm.
is your most challenging client?
So I would actually push against my worst client is not somebody who has hoarding behavior. My worst client is somebody who believes that their only perspective of the world is the one that they have.
Mm,
And that would be true for any profession, any situation, somebody who is not open to seeing things differently is really so basically somebody who's not open to change, not open to adapting, not open to learning a new way, is really going to be the person who has the biggest challenge. And that's true in productivity. So if you feel that the only way to solve your problem is to work 24/7 and that you're special and that these things that I'm talking about don't apply to you, then it's really hard for there to be a different path for you. The other thing that I wanted to touch on is that oh, I just like lost my thought. It's really good. Hold on.
Well, how do people let the audience know what you think about that? How do people get in touch with you? How do they stay connected? Um, how can they, do you do anything where they can just chat with you or chime in on some of your expertise?
Mhm.
Let the people know.
Yeah, sure. I mean, you can find me very easily on LinkedIn. An easy way to get connected is to text the Freedom to 411321 because you'll have all of my contact information and you can literally just hit reply and send me an email. So that's the fastest path to get in touch with me. And then yeah, find me on LinkedIn or anywhere. I'm kind of all over social media. Um,
I
yep.
absolutely love. Now, are you with your book? Are you doing any tours, any talks, any book events? And how can people attend any of that?
So probably. It's in the works. Our dear colleague Jennifer McGinley is working on that as we speak. We actually just talked about it today. So as those things come up, I do share them out on social media, and so being connected on LinkedIn is a good place to see when that's coming up.
Listen, I think what you said about representation mattering and envisioning the type of achiever you want to be is
Mhm.
hugely important. You
Yes.
know, I want to have, I want to have money. I want my business to be successful. I want blip, blip. What does that look like?
Hmm.
When you said that, it really hit home. So I hope anyone that's listening and paying attention, it's okay to find examples that look like you, whether it's your race, your gender, your social standing. All
Hmm.
of these things matter. When we talk about culture, all of these things matter in your culture. Are you a working mom? Are you a stay at home mom? There's a culture for stay at home moms and maybe the things that they want to do in their life. What does that look like? How does successfully paving that path look and finding people that are in that lane, doing it the way that you would at least like to resemble? What does that look like? So finding representation that helps you with all of that. And you have someone right here that you can lean on to help you navigate the rest of it. So with that being said, I want to thank you for taking the time to chat with us today. I want to thank you for being such an amazing human and helping people get their life together, because many of us need that kind of help. We just need that. And it's hard. That's the hardest part, is saying, you know what, I done tried it my way. It ain't working. But once you get to that point, you got somebody to call, because being
Absolutely.
productive, being healthy, happy, and whole, it matters. So thank you so much, Nettie, for being with us today.
Thank you so much for having me. It was truly a pleasure and an honor. You are an amazing, amazing woman. Thank you.
So much. I look forward to watching everything that you do. And if Jennifer invites me, I'm coming to something that you're having. Okay?
I
Love it.
can't
So
wait.
you guys, thank you so much for being here. Make sure you subscribe and share the Leaders and Learners podcast, because we want everyone to be a lifetime leader and learner. Thank you so much.